So last week we decided we were going to give up a bunch of stuff. At least I did. I can't remember what you decided you were going to do. Uh, but we decided we're going to change things until the end of the year. So kind of make a big change towards being better, uh, less distracted, horrible people, whatever. So I gave up uh, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, TV, all of those trashy things, Reddit,
Mhm.
couple other things, but just cold turkey stopped after last week's episode. What changed for you? Because I cannot remember.
Mine was a bit more complicated and not as dramatic. I set up some rules where I have all these things in place on my laptop where if I open a browser, there's a 12-second waiting period and it counts down a timer. I can't have more than basically two things on screen at the same time or it doesn't work anymore. I do not have a browser on my phone. Just basically all these things in place that make it annoying and not that fun to be distracted and, you know, chronically online and scrolling and stuff. And then I didn't, my big issue a few weeks ago was just playing Deadlock like 24/7. But I didn't end up really needing any official rules for that because as soon as you told me to just lean into it and enjoy the binge and the addiction, it suddenly became not as much fun. So
Yeah.
that kind of fell off. And somewhat informally, I've decided that I, for the most part, only want to play games with other people. I don't want to just game for hours and hours on my own. And I do still play Slay the Spire and stuff at night, but it's like a pretty low key type of game. So pretty much I'm sticking with a bunch of hard rules around trying very, very hard to keep any kind of habit forming online addiction type stuff from happening. And then I'm taking a much more intuitive, casual approach of just trying to be mindful of how I'm spending my entertainment time. And it's only been a week, but it's been working very well on that front.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Uh, I had a pretty dramatic change. I mean, probably shouldn't have been that dramatic, but it was.
yeah,
Yeah, it turns out I think the news was really
hmm,
kind of taking over my brain for a while.
yeah,
And I thought I would miss it a lot. I thought I would miss getting angry and upset all the time.
hmm,
Turns out I don't. And giving up the Reddit and I don't know, doing things this way where it was just kind of this saying no to all of this stuff until the end of the year. I'm not going to check it, on a calendar every single day that I'm good or whatever. I'm not going to
yeah,
keep up with any sort of tracker or any sort of little annoying thing I don't have to do. It was just this very,
yeah.
I'm not doing it anymore. And it felt very freeing. And almost instantly, like overnight, it was things have just I've been calmer, yet also
Hmm.
have more energy. I feel, of course, more focused and just better. Feel a lot better. I will say, as a side note to that, I'm also finding there's a reason why I was, binging TV or scrolling forever. And it's one reason is probably to avoid the types of thoughts that all of us try to avoid. The things you have to
Yeah,
work out in your head, the stressful, emotional issues or whatever. Like there's always something waiting to be processed, and you avoid that by, watching TV. So for the first few nights, instead of watching, 4 or 5 episodes of a show and staying up really late, I'm laying in bed for like 3 hours awake, like not being able to sleep because my brain just won't shut off and it keeps,
yeah.
thinking or stressing about things. And so that was a very hard thing to get used to again because it had been a while. So that was just a weird side effect. But overall, like during the day, much calmer, much more focused. Like
Hmm.
it's just, yeah, it's much better.
I feel like when you are chronically distracted and stimulated all the time, which is what we mostly are, you've got all these thoughts and fears and everything that are all in there, and they want time to kind of play out and you just never let it happen. And I can be like this. I know plenty of people like this where they are literally never alone with their thoughts. They have a podcast going, they have a TV show going, they fall asleep to YouTube running or podcast or whatever. Just no space ever for anything. And if you do stop some of those things and you create a hole, everything just starts coming up at once. It's like all these ghosts and monsters just start pouring out of the door screaming, and it's a lot. But if you chill a little bit and let a few days pass where there is space to think about some of these things, and there's probably some element too of trying to keep a healthy headspace and balance things, but if you just give it a little bit of time, the thoughts like have a chance to play through, and then you can chill a little bit. At least that's my experience with that specifically.
Well, that's what I was finding too. Around, day 3 or 4,
Yeah.
you, you just get better at regulating things. So you
Yeah.
can worry a little bit during this time of the day, but when it comes time for bed, your brain's like, okay, we can worry about
Yeah.
that tomorrow or something. Like you just get better at regulate. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the cycle is around 3 to 4 days. That feels about right to me too, where
Yeah.
mostly no matter how bad your mind is, you can get to a pretty good spot, I think within a few days most of the time.
The art stuff is, that's I'm trying to make that my focus.
Yeah.
The love of that has skyrocketed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really wish I had done this earlier, but
Well.
it's just cool. It's working exactly the way that I hoped it would. Which is give up
Mhm.
all this stuff and then trust that the love for this thing will come back. And sure enough, it did.
Yeah.
And so I've been working on that, and it's been pretty good. So I feel like I'm back. I feel like I'm kind of back.
I feel like I'm back too. I actually, if anything, this week, I think I overshot a little bit. I had said that I wanted some limits in place to where I can only work until 8 at the latest. And, I want to get focused again and be working on stuff. But the week was a little bit weird because I spent all of Monday, like morning until bedtime, working on my taxes. They're just annoying and I really hate doing them. So that was Monday, which was fine, but then that kind of compressed the rest of the week where I had all these plans I wanted to do. So I'm like, oh, I got to go super hard on the remaining days of the week. And so even yesterday, I was thinking, okay, well, I want to work Saturday, but I want at least a little bit of time to chill, whatever. That's not what happened. I worked as soon as I woke up until 10:30 at night, totally broke my rule. And I just woke up today feeling like it's like my mind was just magneted on things and I could not get it to chill and just be normal. So I think I got a little bit ultra focused, hyper focused, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
which is it's in my mind it's better than the opposite where I just can't focus on anything. But part of one of my several goals for this cycle is to be a little bit more balanced. So kind of failed at that, but I feel better about next week. So
Well, are you working on the app still? Like making updates to the weight
yeah.
track, not the weight tracker, the calorie counter app? Or are you starting a different one?
Well, so that's part of it is I have mostly decided that my goal for the end of the year is to release the spaced repetition app. I think it's just going back to it, even though I kind of soured on it emotionally, there's just so much there. Kind of realize how much work I really did put into it. And well, okay, first, I think my goal for the end of the year, probably January 1st, is going to be to get some major updates in for the calorie tracking app and then also try and release the spaced repetition app. The other thing that happened was Sam, my wife, uh, started a class for her degree where she has to memorize a ton of plants. She has to learn to recognize them. She has to learn their super annoying Latin names. She has to know all these things about them. So it's just this big time memorization focused class. And she's like, hey, would be really nice if I had a good spaced repetition thing I could use. I'm like, okay, this would just be so perfect to have her using it, giving me feedback, complaining about things that don't work, or she'd rather, it just would be such a good cycle. So I'm like, okay, well, I have to make images work, which is a whole thing. I don't want to get into the details, but because of my design for the app, it's like a whole new system that has to work where it creates files and syncs them and records them in the CRDT system and whatever. So I went really hard last week trying to get that built for her. And that was part of what just got me like a little bit overcooked. But anyway, I think that's going to be the goal for the year. So I'm working on some major updates for Food Logger, my calorie tracking app, and then I want to try and get the spaced repetition app published, which is actually going to be pretty hard because there's some
By
big
the
things
end
that
of
have
the
to
year?
happen. I think so. I'm not
Damn.
100%. I need to like really sit down. Yeah, I know it's very soon. It's sooner than I kind of realized. Uh, I need to sit down and do a real accounting of, okay, what would it really take? What does an MVP version look like? Because the calorie tracking was simpler, and I don't know. It would be a lot. We'll see.
Yeah, you can do it. I say go for it.
Well, I also don't want to release something that's super half baked and janky, but
Well,
it's
maybe
the
you could
current plan.
release half of a thing fully baked. Really simple,
I'm not even
really good.
sure. Well, that's part of it is, could I deliver something that is well done but simple, maybe a small feature set but still functioning well. And I think just the nature of the spaced repetition is that it is somewhat complex. I'm not sure. I haven't really taken the time to be boss Mike and really account for, okay, what are the features that have to be there? What does a 1.0 look like? So I'm not
Yeah.
committing to it until I actually do my due diligence. Um,
Well,
anyway, what about you? What have you firmed up any goals on this book
yeah. So
project?
I was gonna say, well, to be fair, you told me to come up with a goal
Yeah.
me for the end of the year, and I decided that I don't have one yet, and that's okay. Um,
Okay.
it's because I'm trying some new things. I'm figuring some stuff out. I'm experimenting a little bit, and I think it would be premature to come up with a goal right now and then either fail at it or complete it and it be not a good idea.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna wait on that. I'm making things, so that's good. Uh, I the concrete part of it is a bit harder to figure out. I'm working on it,
Okay.
but it's feeling good. So if that counts for anything, it's starting to feel good. I
Okay.
my yeah. Yeah, whatever. Anything I
That
say about it doesn't mean anything to anyone because it's not like I'm showing it.
yeah.
But yeah,
I would have that kind of goes against what I told you last week, but then apparently that's kind of what happened to me. So I'm fine with that. We'll leave it there. I think the there's kind of two reasons for a hard deadline, I think. One is to maybe three, I don't know, but one of them is to really get you to work very hard leading up to that point. If it were the choice between goofing off and playing games and watching TV, but you've got this deadline coming up and kind of help you do that. I think that's not as relevant in our case this time because we've cut out all of the other stuff and are really trying to just focus. So if we can get that part in place, and it sounds like it is, then I don't think you really need a deadline for that. We're both working. The other reason for a deadline is to not necessarily create a time pressure in the sense of choosing to work versus choosing to goof off, but it can also help you prioritize things that are more relevant to delivering the actual product. Whatever it is the deadline is about. It's easy to kind of spend your time doing things that feel fun or appealing, or they kind of feel important but maybe necessarily or aren't necessarily part of the grand plan, and so it can focus you up in that sense. I could see probably both of us risking that a little bit here without hard goals. So that's
I
something
am
to keep in mind. Okay.
taking that risk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, a week goes by, 2 weeks go by, and I'm still saying the same thing. Then it's time to
Okay. Yeah.
figure
So the
something out. But yeah,
yeah. And then I think the other part is more uh the relief or the finish line aspect to it, where you push really hard but you have a date and then you get the thing done hopefully, and then you can chill a little bit. So it psychologically helps a bit with the push, knowing that it's going to be over.
yeah, yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Uh, I hope this doesn't lead to me just forever, being like your spaced repetition app, where it's just
Mhm.
this thing that you've been talking about for a year and a half or so, and no one's seen any progress on
Yes.
it. So
But
I'm
hey,
hoping that's not.
I released something, so I'm giving myself credit for that. But you are right. And that is part of what I realized was, holy crap, I really did put a lot of work into this. So,
Yeah. Uh, okay. In Discord, I got a question, and it kind of ties into all this stuff. VST Hero asked me if I was still using the light phone.
mm,
If you don't mind us talking about that for a little bit.
can we speed through it in like 10 minutes? So this doesn't turn into a 2 hour
That would be
nonsense
great.
podcast? Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people on the YouTube video of that talk of the light phone have also asked me, like, recently, are you still using the light phone?
Yeah.
And I really want to say yes,
But
because I really like the light phone. But uh, I fought the law, and the law won. Fought my job, and they won that. We have like a mandatory security check-in thing you have to do on your smartphone. And yes, I could carry a smartphone and a light phone, but then I have double the problem and not a solution. So yeah, I use a smartphone, and I also ended up using it a lot for video stuff. So I was always using it for recording any drawing. So if I'm drawing and I'm not at home, then
mhm.
I use the phone, the camera for the phone, whatever. So currently, no, I'm not using the light phone. I still have it. I kind of miss it. But in the current state of things, as of last week, I've given up on all of these things. All the time wasting sides of the smartphone, and now it's basically just a camera. Um,
I I feel very strongly about this. I was thinking about this today. Not to butt in because I'm not a light phone user, so I'm sharing my own outside opinion. But we so in computing, we manage security, and it's not always done very well, but it's at least really important, and people try very hard to deal with security aspects of like you being on a computer. So there's a lot of things that you can't do on your PC. Like imagine your laptop, like Mac OS or Windows or something, or Linux.
Wait, can you speed through this in the next 10 minutes?
Yeah, I can.
Sounds like
Thank
a
you.
big one.
Thank you for asking. No. It's a very simple concept. We manage security very carefully, where if you're just goofing around on your desktop and software wants to be installed, you can't just do that. It will ask you, like, do you want to install this software? And if it's software that accesses important resources, it will often ask you for an administrator password. And the whole idea is that there are different users on a computer. There's the normal user. I mean, literally it's just you most of the time, but there's these figurative users. There's the normal user that's allowed to do basic stuff like create a file in your desktop, but that user is not allowed to do like change disks or reconfigure the network or access the kernel and stuff like that. Like there's all kinds of stuff that it's not allowed to do. And when you want to do that, you have to do what's called privilege escalation, where you put in an administrator password and you become the super user. The super user or root can like do that stuff and do these sort of dangerous tasks that you wouldn't want just anyone doing. And very quickly, within a minute or two, depending, that your privileges will drop back down to the bottom, where you can't do anything anymore unless you use a super user password. Point is, we think about this very carefully, and we have all these systems in place to try and prevent anything from having access to more than it's supposed to. And I think that mindset, that very careful, deliberate, carefully carved out set of privileges and whatnot would be very useful to do for a person, not for accessing resources on the PC that are dangerous, but having access to things that are habit forming and dangerous for your mental space. So for me, I have this mode on my desktop where I can only have one screen open and windows can't overlap, and it's very constrained, and it makes it to where it's very difficult for me to start switching between what I'm working on and the web and everything. I've described this a few times. So it's like, it's just hard to get distracted. It's intentionally hard to get distracted. But the problem is that sometimes for different reasons, like right now, I can't use that for recording the podcast because I need like OBS running and 2 instances and then the Discord window and notes over here and all this stuff. So I have to like escalate privileges to where now I have all this stuff. And the problem is that I haven't yet figured out how to have those collapse back down into simple mode. If I don't pay attention and I'm not intentional about it, my computer will just stay in this mode for a long time. Anyway, the way I think that translates to the phone is the problem with the light phone is that it's like normal user that can't be escalated to super user. You can't do those things that you sometimes genuinely just have to do. And so what happens is you wind up in this same scenario where you have to escalate your privileges in the sense that you have to use a real smartphone that's totally unlocked and has all kinds of poisonous things. And there's no way for that to just automatically revert back down to the simple safe mode. We just haven't thought about operating systems in that way. And so it just doesn't exist.
Right. It To me, it's like with the light phone. A junkie on an island with no drugs is just a normal person,
Yeah.
right? So, if you have the light phone, you can't escalate privileges or whatever. You can't just download Instagram on there. And so
Right.
it's very freeing because you never even consider that stuff anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah,
But
we've talked about this a
you have
lot.
to.
But
I
yeah,
know we have.
I know. And the way the world works, we have to use a smartphone. And it's just, if it's, even if you give all the power to the people are weak. And we will always choose the thing that gives us pleasure, and it will screw us over. And it's
But
like,
we're we are weak, but we're also not weak. Like I am pretty confident now that I've spent some time messing with this, that I think I could spec out the way something ought to work for me to remain healthy. I think I could do that. The problem is that there does not exist the facility for that because we have just garbage shoved down our throats all the time. And the power of the operating system is not ours. Apple decides how the iPhone is going to work. Google largely decides how Android is going to work. These things could exist, but they don't. And that's where we're really failing. Like, yes, people are weak, but people are people. There's no changing that. We could have a better system. The light phone is a great attempt. I love that it exists, but it doesn't work because of that, because it can't, it becomes binary. It becomes this thing where you're using it or you're not, and something will force you not to, and then it does not revert back.
okay, I am saying that people are weak and that they can't control themselves. However, I have been strong for at least, or for exactly 1 week. And I'm pretty proud of myself. I have not visited Reddit or Instagram or
Yeah.
checked the news a single time at all. And I'm feeling good about it. I know that once the year ends, I'm going to think to myself, hey, it's over. I can do that now. And then,
Okay.
I'll be weak again. But for some reason, it's kind of working. Granted, it's only been a week, but yeah, something feels, official about
Yeah.
this.
I think there's a lot that goes into it, and it's working for me too. This week I have had really no, I don't think I've had any like rule breaking sessions or any like where I've, got onto Reddit and wasted time or whatever. Um, but I also think that we've been working on this problem for a long time and have better approaches to it. Just the grit your teeth and say no to the temptation that's in your pocket 24/7 is not the best option. So we have somewhat more sophisticated things in place.
Yeah. I will say though, in the past we have obsessed about like, tiny little detailed things. Actually, same person VST Hero brought up that they wanted to try turning their smartphone black and white to make it less appealing. I tried that, and yeah, I had it set up where you press the hold button 3 times and it turns black and white.
Mhm.
And I kept it black and white probably for 3 days, and then I switched it back and totally
It's
forgot about it forever. And it's just I'm finding in the at least the past week that not worrying about all those tiny little things that are supposed to make things a little bit less attractive or whatever here and there, and setting timers places, all the extra stuff, and just like this big hard no to a chunk of things has been very calming and nice. And well, I'll ramble about this for a second. The other side of it is that I know that there is a good thing about all the things I'm saying no to. There's been quite a few times during the week where I really want to watch a YouTube video for educational purposes,
Mhm.
and yet I can't. Because it is a trade-off.
Yeah.
And, you know, when it's causing problems, we talk about how bad it is. YouTube, Instagram, news, all that stuff, Reddit.
Mhm.
You talk about how bad it is, everyone gets on board and agrees that it's really bad. But then over a little bit of time, well, there's some really great things about this stuff. And yeah, there is. Like it's such a trade-off, and it's such a compromise. Very hard. But I don't really have a point to this. I'm just saying that I'm recognizing
Yeah.
that there are some really great things. One,
No, I think that
you
is a
know,
good point to bring up. Yeah.
and like you have to make a really big decision of letting some of these things go, like not watching TV. Well, I love TV. I love these shows. I love these movies. But I'm not going to watch them. And then when I'm working on my art stuff, I have felt, oh, it would be really cool to watch this movie so I could see this monster so I can think about that.
Mhm.
That would be very inspirational. Oh, can't do that.
Well,
So I'm
you
saying
did
no
give
to good
yourself
things.
yeah, but you also gave yourself an out there, which I like, which is that you can watch TV if it's with someone else. So if
Yeah.
there's something you really do want to watch, you just have to convince somebody to watch it with you. And I think that's a nice sort of release valve where,
Mhm.
you can. You just have to be intentional about it, and you are limited by external factors. You have to get Heather to sit down and watch it, and if she doesn't want to, it's out of your control. So I like that a lot. I do kind of disagree with you though about your dismissal of the phone being black and white thing. I've gone through exactly the same thing, turned the phone black and white. I can't remember how. And then I, for whatever reason, eventually turn it back, and then it stays in color mode forever. And the whole thing is a failed experiment. But the protocol would be very simple. I know exactly how it should work, which is your phone should be in black and white. It should be annoying to turn it into color. You have to push a bunch of buttons and maybe enter a passcode or something. And then it becomes color. And then after however long, maybe 20 minutes, it reverts back to black and white automatically. Its base state should be black and white. And it should be exactly what I described. It should be a privilege escalation to get you into color mode. It should be possible because sometimes you need it. It should be a little bit annoying so it's not habit forming, and it should go back. That's it. That is like the answer to so many of these things in our habit addictive loops to all this stuff we have access to. You just need things in place like that, and it's very frustrating to me that that mostly doesn't exist because no one who builds these things gives a shit about it.
Correct.
Anyway,
But
it
that's
could
a
work. That's my point. It could work.
you
We could
have
hope.
hope. Just
Yeah.
no hope that that hope will ever mean anything.
I
Uh,
one day, maybe one day, I've kind of had this vague idea of maybe trying to build a Android distribution, like a custom OS, like there's all kinds of like custom Android flavors, but building something that you could install on an Android phone that is built with this philosophy in mind, where it's limited in a way that you decide the policies on how you want to limit things, and it gives you the ability to create protocols like that. where you have to do annoying things to escalate your privilege to something, and then it always reverts back.
Well, that would
Maybe
be
one day.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I brought up this is, there are good things that you're letting go of when you give up
Hmm.
something that's causing problems. Because somebody else in the Discord, actually, I've noticed I've been using Discord more because I have nothing else.
Yeah.
Uh, so anyway, that's a side note. But somebody said they were thinking about giving up this music forum or something like that, but they weren't sure because there were so many good things on it. And that's kind of been the case with everything that I'm trying to give up, is that, "Oh, I'm not really sure because there's a lot of great things about it." And
Yeah.
I, at least for the rest of the year, I want to take the stance of, if it's causing problems, give it up and let go of the good things with it too,
Hmm.
and find good things in somewhere else. The places you don't look anymore because they're not addictive. Like
Yeah.
for me, it's in books. Oh, yeah, I have tons of books that I never look
I
at
know.
because it's always the internet right there, or I have, journals and stuff with all kinds of ideas that I never revisit because they're
Hmm.
just on paper, and that's boring now. So I'm trying to find the good things in other non-addictive problem-causing places,
Yeah.
and I've been having fun, at least for a week. Might be different next week, but so far, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited about it.
No, having more of a tolerance for boredom really opens up a lot of things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Go be bored, everyone.